the Stargazer's doctor, and Spittle Bugs on the Pinos. Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Season 1, Episode 2 of Star Trek Picard. It is called Maps and Legends, also directed by Hannah Culpepper again. I believe they're doing 2 episodes per director. How are you, Cirroc?
I'm doing good. Maps and Legends, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing all right. This episode was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was cool. The reason I said a fistful of data is, by the way, that is a Next Generation reference, because there was an episode called Fistful of Datas, which was a play on A Fistful of Dollars, the Western Clint Eastwood thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we said that is because there's a whole bunch of androids that this episode opens up with. It opens up on just a ton of data-like androids, and I believe you drew a picture of what was on the back of the guy's head, right?
Yeah, the F8 with the downward triangle.
Nice.
Nice little tattoo that they had on the back of his head. I guess a signifier. But I just thought it was cool because it had fate. It says fate, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing he said. Did you have fun last night? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And I like that. I thought it was a great opening because, you know, it just contrasts what you see of this android, this synthetic robotic looking person, right? Mm-hmm. And he comes off and he has so much personality. You're like, oh, all right, this is interesting. I like that. They started off on that Mars colony, which I enjoyed the opening special effects, kind of them going into, pulling down into the camera, finding their way into this one particular cubby hole that they're on. I thought it was a really good intro, and I liked this episode. Now, they came off of the tail end of Picard doing the interview, talking about what happened on...
Right. So it's like a flashback, yeah.
This is a flashback, right? This is what happened.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Right?
And you know what's brown and sticky, right?
I do. I definitely do.
Well, that was the joke. They said a stick.
A stick, yeah.
Yeah. That was the joke they told F8, and he was just like, I don't get it. Whatever it was. But yeah, so it opens up with those guys, and the robots, you know, they kind of, or the androids, I should say, they turn on them like, and there was another cool little nod to Data, which was when the android's typing, he's typing like super fast, and that's something that Data does as well. That was one of his special powers, when Picard would be like, Commander Data, blah, 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 you know, he'd say something, Data would be like, I'm on it, blah, 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 you know, and knock it out super fast, you know? So those were all good nods to him.
And it was also good that while he was doing his little super fast data fingers, and somebody runs up behind him, he neutralizes him, and, like, you know, while he's still typing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, multitasking.
Multitasking, you know? But I like the costumes and the feel of that small little area that they were in. It felt like a mining site or something that you would have on a startup colony, you know, on Mars. So it looked something legitimate, you know. And I like the set design, the costumes in that particular format. Thought it was real. I mean, it gave a look.
There's also something I wanted to touch on. Might as well just jump on it right here, because the next scene goes to Picard at home with his 2 Romulan friends, helpers, employees, refugees, all of the above. And it got me thinking, and I know this is how Star Trek fans like to nitpick, but at first we thought, well, what's the deal here? Romulans no longer have these forehead pieces, because Romulans in the original series were just kind of like people, right? then in Next Generation and further, series, they kind of had like the forehead ridges and kind of distortions on their forehead on top of the eyebrows and the ears. And then when I watched this, I said, hey, where's the forehead piece? And I know a lot of Star Trek people notice that too. And their hair, they don't have the bowl cut anymore. They're just like these hipster dudes. They all got long curly hair with pointy ears. They just look like Elrond from Lord of the Rings or whatever. But then in this episode, I noticed something I hadn't noticed, which was some of the Romulans do still have these forehead ridges. I noticed it on a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think one was maybe his male helper friend. So then that begs the question, is this some kind of deliberate thing, like where the Klingons had some kind of, change because of the mutations that were going on in the various Klingon stories? I wonder if something's going on with the Romulans there too.
Mm.
I don't know if you noticed any of that, Cirroc, but that's kind of they're kind of teetering back and forth from character to character.
Yeah, I didn't notice it in that way. I actually noticed it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought was interesting was the Romulans are normally these really abrasive, almost like similar to Klingons in the way that they're, matter of fact about their business.
Right. Behavioral differences.
Behavioral differences. So I noticed that these Romulans that are living with Picard, they act differently. They don't have the same kind of military, even though they have the expertise, they don't necessarily have the same projection of a rough exterior, of a rough texture to their persona. They seem more mild and, like you said, hipsters, and, they're more casual about their existence. Made me think, okay, maybe is that a cultural change? Now you're talking about the physical thing, and I'm saying, well, is it a cultural thing if you're disassociated and you're more of a melting pot environment, right?
Right.
So we live in California and we have all these different nationalities here, and you see a melting pot culturally changes people. So people that would normally be traditional wherever their home country is, like a Chinese or a traditional Armenian, when they get to a melting pot environment here in California, everybody's like going to the beach and driving a BMW, and they lose some of their traditional identity signifiers and become more part of the popular culture.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that, but now that you mention it, their behavior, these Romulans, at least the ones that live with Picard, are acting like humans. They're acting human. They're acting regular. They are Romulans. They have Romulan knowledge and Romulan connections. They don't act like Romulans. They're not cutting their bowl cut. They're not being super sinister and sneaky and insidious and aggressive. They don't have all these ploys. Yet we do know that fast forwarding, Commodore O, the lady that seems to be at the top of some kind of hierarchy of
conspiracy.
Yeah, and they're probably the group that they're mentioning at the very beginning, which is at the beginning.
The Jacques Vache.
Exactly. They're talking about that. So she must be there. They've got to be alluding to the fact that they're the Jacques Vache, as well as her young lieutenant, who ends up being the one dude's sister. So she's acting very Romulan, and so is the sister, and possibly the dude. So maybe we're just attributing all the negative and villainous, traits to be Romulan, and then the nice Romulans were like, they seem very human.
Yeah,
kind of speaks to our biases.
It speaks to our bias, and which way we lean in favor of, right? We're obviously leaning in favor of the humans on these shows, but it's interesting for me that one thing was interesting is how the depth of knowledge that the Romulans that are living with Picard have both with the Jade Vache and these secret kind of cabal, they called it.
Right, they did, yeah.
Of people that are, part of this ancient Romulan culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right. They show things and demonstrate things in Star Trek very responsibly. They want to make sure that we know these Romulans that are refugees are not just these helpless, stupid, ignorant, useless people that are just out plowing his fields. They want us to be fully aware that these are extremely capable, intelligent people, that they still know things, they still have skills, they still have connections and theories, and are very useful in many ways. So kudos to Star Trek for always being cognizant of that, and I'm sure it's not an accident. We know it's deliberate.
Yeah, and there's several things there that they give that are tells. One of them is when they are inside of the crime scene trying to reenact what happened with this girl inside of her apartment when her black friend was killed in the beginning.
In the very beginning.
In the very beginning, yeah. So she's reconstructing the way it happened, and she says something to the effect of, well, no, Picard says, oh, you're using that technology, that thing is old and unreliable and it's no good. Right. And she says, yeah, that's what we wanted you to think.
Brilliant. That also reminds me very quickly, I do want to give us a quick update from last week. A lot of the questions that we posed last week, we got answers to this week. One was the friend that died right away. We were wondering if he's an alien we've seen before. We have seen it in Discovery. The character Poe, she's the queen from some wacky planet. She has a really long name, but Tilly just calls her Poe. It's a Zahian. So he is the second Zahian that we've seen, the first being in Discovery. Also, those two Romulan characters, you asked, have we seen those characters before? And I said, no, I don't remember ever seeing them. Turns out those two characters are in a Picard comic book, Countdown issue number 2. So if you want to know more about those characters, it's in Picard Countdown issue number 2. Also, upon reviewing the episode,
those same two characters?
Correct. Picards Buddies, yeah.
Okay.
It was the D. Picard does dream about the D, not the E. There was the Enterprise D, that model. And here's one that I think is possibly the most interesting. Somebody captured a screenshot when it shows downtown Boston in episode 1. And there are two really cool things there. There are a few, but two especially. One is that there's a Ferengi Alliance symbol, the Ferengi symbol, but it's elongated, that kind of looks like a beverage. So it kind of tells us, well, the Ferengi are doing business. They're doing really well there downtown Boston and on Earth. And the other one, even cooler, is Cassidy Yates is on a big electronic billboard. It says Cassidy Yates. It's like her ship, her freighter company. So it shows that two of our favorites from Deep Space Nine are doing very well. Cassidy Yates is now a big successful person within her company. And the Ferengi under Grand Negus Rom with Nog and with Lita are doing really well. So it was really cool to see that.
Oh, wow. So they did have some little gems there that they inserted to kind of pay homage to the storyline, the story arc.
Absolutely, yeah.
The timeline is consistent. So that's awesome that they did that. I didn't see the Cassidy Yates.
It's very hard to see. It's just, there's a screenshot and you kind of got to zoom in and look at it, but it's there. It says Cassidy Yates. It's her freighter company.
Wow. So we're moving up. The DS9 people didn't go away. We're still here.
Yeah. And it shows Kurtzman and company's attention to detail, that they want to, it's kind of like what we were saying before, which is the non-appearance mentions. They give these subtle nods that say, hey, Ferengi are still around. Cassidy Yates is still around and she's doing very well. It's just letting us know it's like little Easter eggs for us.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe one day Picard will stop by Sisko's Creole Kitchen and get him some jambalaya. So, but no, that's a great little jewel that they just inserted in there. And I remember seeing the scene, but obviously there's so much stuff going on. All the buildings, you can't, unless you freeze frame it, you can't study it in the course of it passing by. But even so, they still put it in there, which is great.
Yeah, so special thanks to all the fans that found those things, the ones that posted those and the ones that showed it to us and answered the questions for us. That's really cool. And it's really cool that the people that are making Star Trek, they trust the fans. They say, we're going to put this tiny thing in for 1 second and they're going to find it. You know, and they do. They do.
And they did. They found it, all right. So yeah, no, I enjoyed this episode for some reason more than the first one. I don't know why. Things that jumped out at me was the music. Again, I paid attention to the scoring, and the music just kept me moving through the film. It just was beautifully paced.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Did you hear those? Just
the
background.
You hear there were some nice Star Trekian themes in there for a while. Then there was also the Piccolo, which is a Picard thing from Next Generation, but it's also in the theme song. But you're right. I mean, I really love, their attention to scoring and the quality of scoring. I mean, big kudos for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it stood out. Even the scene where Picard is sitting there with Dr. Maurice, his doctor, Maurice, right?
Maurice.
Yeah, there was even scoring in that scene. So it's still, it wasn't just two guys talking with the dead silence. There was background ambient sound, and it plays to the emotions of the scene, and it's just a great touch. So I have to give a big shout out to whoever's scoring this show.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna go back to the doctor scene, but finish your thought. Yeah.
No, and then I was going to start go into the special effects and the visual effects and how good that is as well.
Right.
I was taken away. For example, one of the scenes that was interesting and just visually was great was when they kind of take us from space past all the ships into the Borg cube, and they kind of go through the cube, and you're like going through it, and you finally land into the scene where they're in the bed together, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just it was just great to see that, because you feel like you're there, you're floating in through it, you get the ins and outs of both the exterior and interior, and I like that shot. And to me, it was just another thing. To me, I was like, wow, this is great visual effects, great special effects, and directing-wise for us to get to this place. It was a great, seamless transition.
Yeah, the quality is top-notch. That's something that has been present with Discovery and is present in Picard. The quality and the production value is through the roof. We are going to take a super fast break in just a second. I just want to say that we'll come back and talk about the Doctor for sure, because there was some really cool things about that. And also I want to talk about one of the characters I think should have a different name. And the Spittle Bugs on the Pinos. I mentioned that, but
You did.
we'll talk about that on the other side. We'll be right back with the Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, aka Jake Sisko from Deep Space Nine, the best writer in the Alpha Quadrant. My name is Ryan T. Husk. We are reviewing episode 2 of Star Trek Picard. And we were talking about, real quick, Spittle Bugs on the Pinos. Picard says something like, I don't have to worry about the Spittle Bugs on the Pinos, or whatever he says. And then, so, of course, what did I do? I Googled Spittle Bugs. I'm like, is that a real freaking thing? And it is. And the reason it's called Spittle Bugs is because they're like on plants, and they house themselves in these bubbles that looks like little pieces of like cottonmouth spittle, right? And I remember now I get those in my rosemary. And at first, when I first saw it like years ago, I thought my roommate was just spitting in my rosemary, but I'm like, ew, that's disgusting. And then when he wasn't there anymore, I thought, oh, maybe it's rosemary just has like sap. It's like some weird bubbly, spittly sap. And now I was today years old when I found out that was
it's a real thing.
Yeah, that does that.
No, I did not know about the Spittle Bugs. I'm glad you did that bit of research because that just enlightens us on how much depth that the writers have. I think that's one thing that really goes unnoticed. I mean, to know about the mechanics of computers, the server, I had to get here, we have to download the router into this. They know all the computer stuff. They have to know all the futuristic like ways to bring things to life. They had a scene here with the cell phone computer stick that had all the records of the calls and whatnot. So they're thinking of all these innovative ways and just depth of understanding that they have of mythology,
right?
Of
attention to detail for sure.
Yeah, of medicine. We talk about the mycelial network and all of these things, right? But I'm just saying, you're talking about covering a lot of things, and with respect to religion and medicine and mythology, and now here you're talking about biology with Spittle Bugs. I just give them a lot of credit for having a wealth of knowledge. These guys they're not dumb people. They're very smart, very articulate, and they do a great job of giving us their knowledge in this format and dropping their jewels. So shout out to the people that are doing this Picard show. Awesome job.
Right. The producers definitely have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of assets. I'm sure that, they have the budget to say, hey, what's a pest in, whatever, and so they can Google it, or they can ask and they can pay an expert, to come visit the writer's room for the day and give them information or whatever they do. But
however they get to that information, they could be Googling or reverse engineering or find a bug that affects wine plants. But it just means that they're thinking about those and they're putting the time and effort to give us the details that matter, right?
Right, definitely. So I do want to go back and talk about that doctor now for a few reasons. Number one is Cirroc the Stargazer is known to be Captain Picard's first captaincy before he went on the Enterprise. So we've only heard a few scattered stories about his days on the Stargazer, but he does remember it fondly. Like he'll sometimes go and say, oh, it's like the good old days on the Stargazer. And now we finally get to meet one of his favorite people from the Stargazer who was his doctor. And what I liked about that also was the doctor's name. Let me see if I can find it. It was Maurice Benayoun. And I always find their choices of names interesting because Benayoun is definitely some kind of Arabic or Middle Eastern or Israeli kind of last name. And so that, that's another thing that's attention to detail. It's all just the character's name tells us a story, and I really like that. So
absolutely. It
was a good character, good scene. What do you think about it?
I've seen that doctor before. I don't know what it's a mafia movie that he was in, I think. And
really?
I'm big on mafia movies, so I'm pretty sure he played in one of these my favorite mafia movies. So as soon as I saw the actor, I was like, oh man, I know this guy. He's like one of those guys that you see and you know his face and you wonder what was the scene that he did that burned him into my memory, right? There's something, and I'm guessing it's a mafia scene. I didn't really look into it, but I like the actor and I like the way he portrayed that character.
Yeah, I'm looking at, while you talk, I'm looking through his IMDb because it is extensive, as you might guess.
Yeah. He's the type of guy that's, been in so many different things. And I just wonder, what is the thing that I am attaching to my memory when I see him, right? Mm-hmm. But he's a fantastic actor. And I like the delicacy with which he approached this particular scene because he's giving Picard bad news, essentially. He's a good friend of his, and Picard is reaching out to him to get this favor. Like, I need you to make sure that I'm eligible to be intergalactic. Right, you know? So, as a matter of fact, he starts off, he says, for a relic, you're in excellent shape.
That's right.
and I like that line, like right off the top. He just started jabbing at, you know, his old friend, you know. And then he said something, he closed the scene with, I thought was a really poignant line as well. He said, you really want to go back out into the cold, knowing, you know? And that was a big question that he poses for me to Picard. It's like, do you want to really do this, bro? You know, you realize what your options are and what you're facing. This is not looking good. You're probably sooner or later. And then I think he even says, well, maybe the ship will kill you before, you know, like maybe your adventures will kill you before whatever this illness is.
Yeah, it's hinting that he may have Aromatic Syndrome, I believe. They haven't fully said it, but in the final 2-part episode of Next Generation, which is, for my money, it's the best final episode, All Good Things, best 2-parter. I think that the best pilot first 2 episodes was Deep Space Nine's for sure, Emissary, possibly Picard being second. But Next Generation, in All Good Things, they find there's a defect in his head in the parietal lobe that can lead to all kinds of things, including Aromatic Syndrome, which is, I believe, a made-up thing. And then when they flash forward like 30 years in the future, he has it. He's an old man that's hallucinating and, you know, whatever. So this is showing kind of that coming into being. This is like 19 or 20 years later. And the doctor is saying, hey, I found this defect in your parietal lobe. And that explains, you know, like kind of hallucinations and bad dreams.
Mood swings. Yeah.
Exactly. And it makes you kind of wonder when he's talking, for example, with that admiral, the blonde-haired admiral lady or white-haired, and she's kind of being a little extra rude to him, right? And then makes you, is she really being that rude, or is he imagining it being worse than it really is? I don't really know. But maybe
or is his condition making him be abrasively rude?
Right.
So I think she says something to the effect like the nerve of you. What did she say?
Something like that.
Sheer effing hubris is what she says.
Yeah, hubris. That's what it was. Right. You're right.
Yeah, she says sheer effing hubris. And because he says, I'm prepared to, you know, even be demoted to captain. You know, something
I'll take a pay rate or a pay jump real quick.
Yeah. You know, I'm prepared to be demoted to captain, like, if that's what it takes. You know, she's like, you fucking, what do you think? You got it all figured out?
Who the fuck are you? Who says they want you back?
Yeah, so I thought that was, once again, another great scene.
Yeah. Can we talk about for a moment, there's a character. So now we've found out that there's a dynamic between Narek and the Lieutenant Rizzo. Turns out she's a Romulan and she's his sister. And now we're starting to see the makings and the hierarchy of this cabal. There's Commodore O, who's in Starfleet, like one of the highest people in Starfleet, but who's infiltrated. She's a Romulan. Then you have Narek and Lieutenant Rizzo, or whatever her real name is. One thing I did want to say, Narek is a very, very clearly a British actor who talks with a British accent and acts very British. And I was thinking, instead of calling him Narek, can we just call him like Nerold? Nerold, I'm the Romulan Nerold over here.
Sir Nerold.
Nerold of High Castle.
Oh.
What do you think? Will that fly?
The Duke of Romulus. No, the thing that I thought was interesting is that he looks. Excuse me.
Cirroc, that's too many. Cirroc was eating a bunch of nuts beforehand. So are you on an almond?
I don't know what it is.
So,
but he looks like the new Spock in Discovery.
Right. A lot of people notice that too. Yeah, he just looks.
There's this like, you know, there's this the way they shave. The way they shave. I guess they go to the same barber, but there is this kind of rough look to them and this bad boy kind of look. And I think they both have this. I actually have to double check if it's not the same actor playing both characters.
Yeah. Or the same guy handing you your latte at Starbucks.
So, but yeah, so they have that, this guy coming in, and he does have a British accent. I mean, but I don't fault them for that, because, you know, the Romulan that we talked about earlier, one of Picard's Romulan housemates, she speaks with an Irish accent.
Yeah, or Scottish or something. Yeah.
Scottish or Irish accent.
And that's okay, because it just means that maybe they spent some time in Ireland or England. You know, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay for me. It doesn't make me say, "Oh, this is ridiculous." It doesn't bother me.
No, it can be explained away in universe. They could say, "Well, they spent their first 2 years learning English in England." Okay, answered. Got it.
Answered. There it is. I thought was cool was this. I made a little picture of it, but it's that little visitor.
Yes. Hold on.
The visitor logo.
Pull that up again.
Yeah, this is the
visitor pin.
Yeah, the little visitor pin that Picard had to wear when he was visiting with the admirals there. And I thought that was there it is.
There it is. We got that at the premiere in Hollywood. The Hollywood premiere handed.
Oh, did we?
Out. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Check your little 2-year-old girl backpack that they gave us.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Really cool. Really awesome.
Yeah, so I like that. It was a cool little touch that they put on there. The other thing I liked, and I made another picture of it, is the teleportation metal detector checkpoints that they had. Mm-hmm. So people going in and out of work were like just beamed out as they were walking through this thing. They were appearing and disappearing, which I thought was pretty cool as well.
Can I just allow my nerdy Vulcan ears to point out for a second and nitpick that piece of technology?
Yes.
Thank you. It really needs to be separate teleporters with one-way access only. Like, these teleporters are specifically for arrivals, and these teleporters are specifically for departures, because what you have is people going into these teleportation devices and out, back and forth constantly. They're gonna get materialized into each other. Yeah. Because when somebody's rematerializing, if somebody just happens to be walking there, because it's very likely they're going to rematerialize inside of somebody else. So come on, guys. That when I first saw that, I was like, come on, just have them all one-way things.
Right. This is the exit. This is the entrance.
Yeah, because otherwise people are going to materialize into each other. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I didn't think of it that way. Obviously, you went into it. So it is a nitpick, and that's what we do when we nitpick. We dive in deeper into something that doesn't jive with our, spidey sense. So I'm not upset with that critique, but it visually did look something cool. I understand the idea of what they were trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a cool little idea. It was basically a metal detector that beams you in and out, right?
That was cool.
But there were some great lines in this. I want to give a shout out to the dialogue, the script writers, the teleplay.
Yeah. Any of them that stand out to you?
Yeah. One of them was I really enjoyed the back and forth between Picard and his higher ups.
Right.
And one of the things she said, she's like, a once great man, desperate to matter. Ooh. That's what she calls him. And it's like, oh, that was tough. And then she says, do what you're good at. Go home.
Oh.
And it was another sting.
Another kick in the teeth.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. So I thought the dialogue was good. Those were some good lines.
That lady, Admiral Kirsten Clancy, played by Anne Magnuson. So that's who that was.
Yeah.
And Commodore O is played by an actress named Tamlin Tomita.
Both did very good jobs. I enjoyed their performances.
Acting's been great in this series so far. What do you think? Any notes?
I think the acting's been great. Yeah, I don't have any problem with the acting. I like the science doctor that they brought in. I like the Romulans that he has. And I like the girl that have the twins of, the twin girl.
Mm-hmm.
I like her as well.
Briones, yeah.
Yeah, she's something special to watch. She has that it factor. So yeah, no, I'm not at all bothered by the acting. I think it's really good acting so far. We had the Earl Grey reference as well in this one. What kind of tea would you like?
Yes. I was thinking something that would have just been hilarious is because, of course, we already got the Earl Grey nod, which was cool. But then this time when he says, would you like some tea? And she says, oh, how about some Earl Grey? He says, oh, good choice, or whatever,
I knew there was something special about it.
Yeah. But what if instead she says, how about some English breakfast? And he her up grumble.
English breakfast.
Yeah,
tea
come on.
Drinking. Supposed to be smart.
That
would have been good. That would have been good.
I was hoping for it. Patrick Stewart said he hates the taste of Earl Grey in real life. He says it's like lawnmower clippings is what he called it.
Oh wow.
I like
it. Yeah, I put so much honey and sugar and in my tea that you wouldn't know what kind of tea it was anyways.
It's unrecognizable.
It's unrecognizable.
Like Starbucks coffee is really just like syrup.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty much that. So you wouldn't know what I'm drinking. So what is this? A milkshake? But there was another line that I liked also, going back to the dialogue and the words. She says, you already slept with me. That makes you an accessory to my plot. I like that little pillow talk.
I guess it was, yeah.
It was a little bit of
a line that was really good on that subject that I really liked was when Commodore O is talking with Lieutenant Rizzo, and Commodore O kind of brings her up to speed and says, hey, this is going on, that's going on, this is bad. Lieutenant Rizzo, who, by the way, we find out it's her people that are the ones that are going out and kill Dodge. So we know that they're behind all this. They're behind the Romulans, that are in the mass. They're behind the guys going to kill Dodge and everything. It's, she's basically at the top. Commodore O is for now. And her right-hand lady is Lieutenant Rizzo. And when she tells her it's not going well, Lieutenant Rizzo says, this is unexpected. And Commodore O says, a dirty word, especially in our line of work. Ooh. That's good, because their job is to know everything, plan for everything, expect everything. That was my favorite line.
Yeah, and they're building up this Romulan secret group. Have they talked about this Jacques Foch before, or this is something new?
I've never heard it. I think this is the first time. I think this is a new element that they are bringing in. Yeah.
And the way they described it was the older cabal, the secret keepers that have a deep loathing hate for synthetic life.
Illuminati.
Yeah, well, basically, they were kind of making those kind of references. So it was this secret society that's trying to take people out. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and the Tal Shiar, which was what we always knew, that's kind of like, the Secret Service or the CIA or whatever, or the spies. They're kind of like their front or their puppets, but these are like the even farther, darker, more infiltrating group.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what we saw with the Jem'Hadar and the Dominion, right? Mm-hmm. One's the front for the other, right. Or the muscle, or whatever you want to call it. But
like Weyoun was kind of like what they all thought was the main guy until they found out that the founders were even behind him.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
And the Borda, right?
Yeah. So the only, it was funny because the one nitpick I had was when the two girls were in the inside the Borg cube, and they were doing they saw Noir, Romulan.
Nerald? You mean Nerald?
Yeah, when they saw Nerald, they were like, "Wow, I didn't know Romulans could be so hot." And I thought she would have said something to the effect like, "Back off, I just slept with the guy 30 minutes ago. Please stop talking about him like that." I thought she would be a little bit more possessive, but she did not.
I also want to ask the people listening in to tell us in the comments below, how hot is Nerald? Like, is he like, you know, because they're like, I didn't like the way she was making it sound was like, this is a Greek god I'm looking at here. And so I want to know, is this guy a Greek god, or, you know, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that was my question. I was like, all right, this is awkward. It was awkwardly placed line. It's like, all right, they're attracted to, you know, that's fine. But for him to be that blow away, drop dead gorgeous, that two girls that just met each other, right, would talk about it like that. I just didn't think that was going to be, it didn't jive with me. He ain't no Brad Pitt.
And right now there's millions of women going, oh, that's because you guys just never listen to Girl Talk. You guys are never in our inner circle, so you don't know. You don't know what we talk about.
No idea.
We don't.
Fair enough. That's a fair enough exchange. I double listened to the, you know, now that we're getting it, I can already feel the theme song growing on me. I don't know if you can.
Beautiful.
Well,
yeah.
I watched it again, and now as you keep rewatching it, it starts to like, oh, okay, and then I start to hear it, and it becomes more familiar to me.
Right.
So I can almost see the day where I'll be able to
hum it. Yeah.
Hum it, right?
Yeah, I remember when we first heard it at the Hollywood premiere, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. We're going to love it. I mean, you already knew it was going to be great. You could already love it, but you know it's going to take a few more listens before it becomes, as you said, familiar. And I likened it to, for me, the Game of Thrones song. When I first heard it, I was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's kind of boring, or there isn't much to it.
Yeah, it's generic.
But then once you got used to the Game of Thrones thing, you're like, oh man, this is a great theme song. And I think that's what's going to happen with this, is once people get used to it, they're going to really like it. You know, it's going to get stuck in their head. They're going to play it.
Yeah. I'm glad to have rewatched this episode. I got us when we originally were at the premiere, we saw the episodes, you know, connected in, you know, back to back to back. So seeing them separate is allowing me to really kind of get, okay, that's the story they wanted to tell for this particular. It's great that they can run it in sequence, but it's also great for me to just sit down and digest this part and just say, okay, let me see, do I like this episode or not? And in this particular episode, I liked it. I thought it was a good episode. Everything that we talked about, from the music to the special visual effects to the dialogue, I was spot on point. I really don't have too much criticism for this show.
Yeah, and they keep giving us a ton of Easter eggs. Another one that wasn't really an Easter egg, but just something really cool, was when Picard walks into Starfleet headquarters, which is, I believe that's Starfleet headquarters, which was at San Francisco, that we all know and love. And he walks into the lobby, which kind of looked like the Getty Center. I don't know if it was, but looked like the Getty Center here in LA.
Yeah.
But he walks in and he looks up on the ceiling and he sees the old Constitution class Enterprise from the original series. And then that hologram changes into the Enterprise D, which was his ship. And so that was a really nice thing. You know, it gives us a little warmth in our heart to see those ships we love.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that scene up, because I wrote down here also in my notes that it was a funny moment when he's checking in and the guy's like, you know, he's like, I'm here for the meeting. And the guy's looking at him like, all right.
What's your name?
Yeah, what's your name? And Picard, the way he says it is exactly how James Bond says his name. So they always say, hey, what's your name? He says, Bond. James Bond. And when Picard says it, he says Picard. Jean-Luc Picard.
Didn't he spell it out too? Didn't you have to spell it out for that kid? Yeah. Like the guy's like, am I supposed to know you? Gramps. I don't know what you smell like. Earl Grey, dude. You smell
Is
like
that
Earl
with
Grey
an
and
H?
mothballs.
Picard with an H or a K?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny though. There's good moments, and it's actually a joy to kind of watch Patrick Stewart doing his thing and getting his mojo back. Yeah.
So we've got just a little less than a minute left before we got to run. I do want to tell everybody at home that we also do a series in which we watch, rewatch, and review Deep Space Nine episodes with Cirroc, Lofton, and various special guests here and there. So it's really fun and cool to see Jake Sisko rewatching his old episodes and his old
For the first time.
So I guess it's not really rewatching, but yeah.
Watching.
You get to join Cirroc in his very first viewings. I mean, he was a part of them, but watching them for the first time has been really fun. We've done 50 episodes of that so far, so definitely check that out. We've got just a couple seconds left. Final thoughts on this?
Not really. I just thank everybody for the support, all of our producers, everybody's that's been along the way. Thanks for, rest in peace, Aron Eisenberg and Melissa, who's been just steadily contributing and being there for us.
Sure.
So we just want to say thank you to everybody who supported us and continue to support us. So we appreciate it.
Perfect. I totally agree. Melissa has been wonderful. Aron Eisenberg, who started this whole thing, brought us all together. Special thanks to him, our superstar, and also special thanks to Imo Radka, Rex Wood, Dennis Koch, Homer Frizzell, the commander, Eve England, and Kat R. King, also our Trek Tech, Heather Jordan. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week on The Seventh Rule.